Hey everyone, this is Matt, and in today's video, I have for you a Labrynth Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG deck profile. That's right. I hinted at in a lot of my other videos that I probably wasn't going to make any more TCG Labrynth deck videos until Photon Hypernova came out. Um, but some circumstances came up. Basically, yesterday morning, I went to my locals and I brought an experimental Bestial Dark Magician deck that I've been playing around with. So I went to locals expecting to play that. Um, and then when I got to locals, I found out that yesterday was Yu-Gi-Oh! Day. So for those of you who don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Day I think is like some anniversary, or I don't know. It's some like special event that happened this weekend. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Day took place either on Saturday or Sunday, depending on which locals. In fact, one of the other locals I usually go to, they're doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Day today, which is Sunday, right? So yesterday they on Saturday, the other Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals I went to celebrate Yu-Gi-Oh! Day. So I'm not really sure what the fuss is about, but apparently, to my surprise, we had a new set that came out called Amazing Defenders. I had no idea that. I thought Photon Hypernova was the first thing that was going to come out, but yeah. So Amazing Defenders just released, I guess, yesterday as part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Day celebration. So my locals is doing like special prizing for that. I think like top eight gets one of these like little purely field centers, right? Purely is like the archetype that is going to be like good once all the support for it comes out. Um, and they're also giving a playmat, like a special Amazing Defenders playmat, to whoever got first place at the locals. And guess what? It was me. So the playmats that my locals ordered was delayed, the shipment. So they're gonna call me to tell me when the playmat is arrived, so I can go pick it up. But yeah, I went undefeated. Plus, I wasn't gonna make a Labrynth video without my Labrynth playmat anyway, which is a little sad because I actually did not play with this playmat yesterday. Because again, I went to locals expecting to play Bestial Dark Magician. I brought my Dark Magician Girl mat, but then like when I found out, oh, there was an event going on, and I saw like all the best players from the area were showing up at my locals. I'm like, oh shit, this is actually like a legit tournament. I should probably take it seriously, especially when there's an exclusive playmat prize involved, right? So I quickly, lucky for me, had my Labrynth deck on me. So I decided, you know what, screw Bishop Dark Magician for now. I'm gonna play Labrynth, right? Because I'm gonna see if I can win this playmat, and I did. So that's cool. So yeah, so this is my first place, uh, I guess undefeated Labrynth deck profile. So before we get into it, before anyone asks, so these are Dragon Shield matte sleeves. These are silver, right? So if you're playing Labrynth, you gotta have the silver sleeves. Come on, like when we played Eldritch, we had the golden sleeves. We're playing Labrynth, we're using the silver sleeves. It just makes sense, right? So for the main deck and side deck, I have the silver sleeves, and then for the extra deck, I have the Dragon Shield matte white sleeves. Which obviously, the reason I chose these colors is because they. I mean, look at the archetype, right? Silver and white. That's what we got. So you got to play with these sleeves. That's just my opinion. But anyway, and then of course I have this shiny custom field center. That's like holographic. If you're wondering where I got this, eBay. Just go on eBay, right? Like, look at that. Very nice. Literally, go on eBay and type Labrynth field center, and this will probably pop up. I'm not gonna link it. Just go to eBay. It's not that hard. Same with this playmat. So this playmat, which looks very nice, right? Let's get this out of here. Um, eBay. Go to eBay. Type Labrynth playmat, and make sure you're not doing any work because you're probably gonna get some not safe for work ones. But yeah, you'll find this one. This one's a very popular artwork like design. So yeah, just go to eBay. All right. So let's talk about. I'll talk about my matchups during the video or later in the video. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but in this video, I will also suggest some changes for when Photon Hypernova comes out. What cards you should probably take out for the new cards. So let's get into it. So we're gonna first start with the Labrynth core cards. So these are cards that I think at the moment Labrynth decks should be playing. So we have 3 Lady of the Silver Castle. This is your primary boss monster. She's great, and yeah, this one here is a Starlight that you may have seen me unbox on my other video, right? And these are just regular secret rares. I am still in the market for a second Starlight. Because I don't want a third because once Photon Hypernova comes out, I'm gonna drop this ratio down to 2. So just FYI, this is 3 now because there's not a good way to recycle these Labyrinth monsters from the graveyard. But guess what? Big Welcome Labrynth is a good way to recycle these monsters from the graveyard, which means as soon as that comes out, this is going to 2. So I don't think we'll need more than 2 ladies, just like I don't think we needed more than 2 Golden Lords, right? The reason that 3 is okay for now is, well, obviously because we don't have a good way to recycle them from the graveyard, but also she's a lot easier to summon than the Golden Lord. So, yeah. So let's read her effect. So let me see if I can get a close up here. So she says, while you control a set card, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, and it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So, yeah, this basically has like a mini Dragoon protection. While you have a set card, which is really cool because it's like, all right, and this came up a lot. Like, they try to take you out your lady with Bistio Druis Worm. You can't because it targets. They try to bounce your lady with what's his name, Kaleido Heart. You can't. It targets. They try to pop your lady with the Tearlaments Field Center. You can't. It targets. So yeah, they try to negate and destroy your lady with Toad, totally awesome, and then set it to their field. They can't because it destroys, right? I mean, they can negate the effect, but they can't destroy it and then put it on their field. Because as long as you have a set, again, you have to have a set card. So most of the time, you'll set a card before summoning her. That's fine. Yeah, the only time she's not protected is under skill drain or if you have no back row. But if you have no back row, then yeah, you might be in dire straits. But let's read her other effect because so each of the following effects once per turn. So once per turn, if you activate a Labrynth card or a normal trap, sorry, not you. If a Labrynth card or a normal trap was activated this turn, so that means that includes by your opponent, you can just special this card from your hand in defense position, right? So yeah, in the Labrynth Mirror matchup, yeah, you can literally they Ariana, you can special your lady. They special their lady, you can special your lady. Like it's great. And then as for normal traps, I guess like like Flandre's matchup, they use Dreaming Town, then you can special your lady, right? So yeah, she's very easy to summon. And then her second effect, which is arguably the more important effect. Let's see. When a normal trap card is activated, quick effect, you can set one normal trap with a different name directly from your deck. So it's a when effect, so timing matters. So a normal trap, let's say you activate a normal trap like Welcome Labrynth, right, or Punishment or whatever. You ask your opponent response to that. If they don't respond, you can respond with Lady to set another trap from the deck. So they can stop you from using that effect by literally chaining anything, right? Chaining a Bestial, chaining like Suliak, whatever. They can chain something. By the way, Suliak targets, so they would chain to like flip it, but they can't activate it, right? They can't actually negate assume because it targets unless if you have a set card. But yeah, so if your opponent knows what they're doing, they're going to try to chain anything to your normal trap if they can, right? If you have Lovely on the field, then they cannot chain monster effects. So keep that in mind. We're going to get to Lovely later. But yeah, but if they don't have a response, then you chain Lady to your own normal trap, and then you can set another trap from the deck. So yeah, she generates like mad advantage. She's like so good. Yeah, definitely the best trap deck monster in the game right now. Just because of how she can like literally bring out any normal trap from the deck, right, and set it to your field. Yeah, she's awesome. So yeah, we're playing 3 of her, but Photon Hypernova comes out. We're dropping this to 2. In fact, during locals, there were too many turns where I opened with 2 of her in my hand. I'm just like, I mean, technically I could summon her. She's easy to summon, but like it's kind of a brick. If you're going second, and you have a board to break, you definitely don't want to see 2 of these in your hand. You barely want to see 1 of these in your hand because she's not great at breaking boards. She's great at setting up a board, right? So she's great. So you could see 2 of her in your opening hand going first. That's fine, I guess. But going second, you really don't. So even during this locals, I was like, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I like the fact that I saw her a little too often. But you know, it is what it is. Sometimes it happens, but yeah, it's gonna be great when we drop her to 2 once Photon Hypernova comes out. Anyway, so that is our boss monster. Let's actually leave this out for now. So we're playing 1 copy of Lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle. This is a brick you never want to see in your hand. Although when Big Welcome Labrynth comes out, it's going to be a little better if she's in your hand. Like, it's still going to be not ideal. You want her in your deck. But yeah, so Lady is 3,000 attack, 2,900 defense. Lovely is 2,900 attack with 1,700 defense, or yeah, 1,900 defense. Sorry. Yeah, she's very pretty too. So I still want to rarely upgrade her to a collector's rare, which is actually like relatively cheap. I just need to find a seller and make a good deal. But let's do what she says. Your opponent cannot activate monster effects in response to the activation of your normal trap cards. Okay, so that's important. So if you have Lovely and Lady both on the field, then that means when she activates her effect, because of her effect, they cannot chain monster effects. So they can only chain non-monster effects. So it'll be easier to resolve Lady. And then her other effect says it's once returned. So you can target a normal trap in your graveyard, set it to your field. So Lady grabs traps from the deck, sets it. Lovely grabs traps from the graveyard, sets it. So if you have both of them, oh my god, like you have an insane engine, right? So good. And then it says if another monster or monsters leaves the field by your normal trap effect, except during the damage step, you can destroy 1 card in your opponent's hand at random or their field. So she has a non-targeting pop. So on of your opponent's card on your opponent's field or in their hand, the hand card is random, the field card is chosen, but it's non-targeting, which is pretty important. All right. So 1 copy of her. Yeah, most of the time, if you're playing Welcome Labrynth, like the regular Welcome Labrynth card, you're bringing her out because she's really good and she has synergy with your trap cards. And then 2 copies of Ariana, the Labyrinth Servant. So, in my last video, I had 3 Arianas. We dropped her to 2 since then, and I've never been happier. So, yeah, you definitely don't want to see 2 of these in your opening hand. So a 2-of ratio is great for that. But yeah, like basically, I dropped her to 2 because I had too many games where I saw 2 of her in my opening hand. I'm just like, man, I really don't want that to happen, so I dropped her to 2, and I've never missed the 3rd copy. I have never ever missed it. Like, yeah, she's your normal summon. A lot of times when you're going second, they have a board with a bunch of monster negates. Don't even bother normal summoning her because there's no point if she's just gonna get negated, right? Yeah. So she reads: if this card is normal summon or special summon, so that means you can trigger her effects from Welcome Labrynth. You can add 1 Labrynth card from your deck to your hand, except Ariana the Labyrinth Servant. If another monster leaves the field by your normal trap effect, except during damage step, you can draw a card. Then do the following effect from your hand: either special summon a fiend monster or set a spell trap. And each of those effects are mutually exclusive. So once you can only do 1 of them per turn, kind of like Lord of the Heavenly Prison. So that's another way to get Lovely out of your hand. Trigger her effect, draw a card, and then you can special summon Lovely from your hand. So yeah, she's great. Sometimes you want to, when you use Welcome, you want to summon her. Use her to search Lady, and then summon Lady on the end phase or something, or like that turn, right? So most of the time you want Lovely, but sometimes you want her to search you, Lady, right? Because then Lady in your hand can immediately summon on the same turn. So it depends on the situation. I would say if you have a way to trigger Lovely on your opponent's turn, then just get her right away, right? If you don't, or maybe your back row, like you have too few back row, or maybe you're under Necro Valley, whatever. Bring out Ariana, search Lady, and then summon Lady, and then use her effect to in response to one of your cards to like get another card out. So yeah, I'm happy with this ratio. Again, Big Welcome comes out, we're dropping this to 2, right? This is all we need. We're not playing Ku Klux, we're not playing Stoves, we're not playing any other Labyrinth monsters except these. So yeah, this is the right ratio. And then for spell traps, so 3 copies of Welcome Labrynth. So this card is great. This is your main starter. We're at 3 copies. Even though it's once per turn, we're at 3 copies because we want to see this as often as possible because we need to get our engine going, right? However, one big welcome comes out, I'm actually thinking we drop this to 2 copies, folks. That's right, 2 copies. Why 2 copies? Because with let's say we have 2 copies and we have 3 copies of Big Welcome, and we will be playing 3 copies of Big Welcome. That's 5 starters, and we play Trap Trick, so that's 7 starters. So, and we have Ariana, which can search any of them, so that's 9 starters, and we have a bunch of pot cards that can draw into them, so that's like potentially, like 13 starters, whatever. The point is, the reason we would probably drop this to 2 is because this card can recycle itself, folks. Like, let's read what it says. So, this card reads, it's a normal trap. Special summon 1 Labrynth monster from your deck. Also, until the end of the next turn, you cannot special summon monster from deck, or actually except fiend monsters, okay? If a monster, so this will get your monsters out. If a monster leaves the field by your normal trap effect while this card is in your graveyard, except the turn it was set there, you can set this card. So, yeah, this card can literally recycle itself. So, do you really need more than 2 copies from playing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, like either on Yu-Gi-Oh Omega or even like the few locals that I went to? I never really needed more than 2 copies of these, like in rotation, right? Like by the end of the duel, I never searched or had more than 2 of these. The third one was usually in my deck or banished off Trap Trick, right? So, yeah, I just don't see a real need to realistically have 3, other than the fact that right now it's our only starter, right? Whereas once we get Big Welcome Labrynth, by the way, Big Welcome Labrynth does not recycle itself, right? But this one does. Like, yeah, I think we can drop this to 2 and play 3 Big Welcome, and then we have 5 starters plus all those other ways to sing this card. So, yeah, it's a 3 of right now. I think it should drop to a 2 of in the near future, right? But yeah, this card recycles itself, and in fact, if you have the field spell and you have 1 in the graveyard, you activate 1, you summon a thing and pop a card. You can This one goes to graveyard, you can immediately recycle the other one. Like, so if you have the field spell, these could literally recycle themselves like over and over. So like, do you really need more than 2? Like, ask yourself at the end of your duels with Labrynth, have you ever actually needed or saw your 3rd copy of Welcome Labrynth? Right. For me, the answer is no. So I want this to be a 2 of, but unfortunately, I can't do that right now until Big Welcome comes out. So yeah, so 3 copies of the Welcome Labrynth, 1 copy of the field spell. The field spell's okay, I would like, honestly, this is a card I side out a lot actually. Like against the Tearlament matchup, this card always comes out of my main deck game 2 and 3. The reason because I want to activate Necro Valley. So what's the point of having 2 field spells if I'm just gonna try to turbo Necro Valley, right? But also, this isn't great against Tearlaments because this basically enhances your Welcome Labrynth spell trap, and by the way, this will also enhance Big Welcome, so that when you summon your monster, you pop a card on their field, right? But the thing is, with a lot of times especially in Tearlaments matchup, you don't really want to pop a card because they're just gonna float, right? Or like they have a bunch of like floating effects in the graveyard, so it's kind of silly. So yeah, this comes out every time game 2 and 3 against Tearlaments because there's no point. Like, what's the point? Other matchups, this is great. Tearlaments, not so much. So yeah, 1 copy of the field spell. It's kind of bricky. You typically don't want to see it in your opening hand. You'd rather search this out with like Ariana or whatever. But yeah, it's okay. It's a very solid field spell. Curse Eldland should have been a field spell. It would have made the card better in my opinion. But I mean, Curse Eldland has other issues. But yeah, this card is it is a card. It is definitely a card. It is a Labrynth card that we are playing, and that pretty much rounds out the Labrynth package, right? So we have 4 spell traps, and then we have 6 monsters for a total of 10 cards. So when Big Welcome comes out, we're gonna drop Lady to 2. So, and then we're gonna add 3 big. We're gonna drop Welcome to 2. So we're gonna go down to 8, right? And then we're gonna add 3 big welcomes. So we're gonna go back to 11. So 11 card package. It's unfortunate that's 1 card more than I would like. I would prefer it to be 5 card, but then it makes you think, well, gee, how long until I drop Ariana to 1? We'll see, but nah, for now, that's what I plan to do. Anyway, so in this locals that I attended, by the way, it was a tier fest. It was literally a tier fest, right? Uh, there were exactly 3 non-tier players in my entire locals I was aware of, right? Myself playing Labrynth. There was another Labrynth player who played a shittier Labrynth deck, and I'll talk about why it was shittier. And there was a Infernoble Knight player. Uh, this guy, at my locals, I've known this Infernoble player for a long time. He's obsessed with Infernoble Knights. He plays it every so often. Um, and yeah, I've seen him top 4 very often with that deck, so he's very good at it. Especially since a lot of players don't know how Infernoble Knights works anymore. But yeah, it was us 3 that I was aware of. Everybody else was tier. It was literally just tier, right? Like just so much tier. My round 1, I played tier. Round 2, I played the Labrynth, so I had a Labrynth mirror, which is hilarious. So the first round against tier, I 2-1, right? Second round against the Labrynth mirror, I 2-0 because my Labrynth deck is strictly superior to the other dude's Labrynth deck. Why was it superior? Because he was playing bad cards I think he was playing Stove, and he was playing like the Coup Clock, and he literally bricked on the Coup Clock, right? It's like he had a Coup Clock he couldn't use because he didn't have a trap he wanted to activate. So like that on the same turn, right? So again, don't play the Coup Clock. It's a freaking brick. Like how is Coup Clock gonna save you, especially if you're going second against a Tearlaments deck? It's not. That's the thing. Coup Clock is not gonna do anything for you. And he was also playing other useless cards like Imperm and like Bestials. It's like, wait, you're playing Bestials in the Labrynth matchup? Like, I mean, okay. He had no monsters in my graveyard for him to banish, so it's like, all right. And he also had Imperm, which is like just a really bad card because it can't trigger any of the Labrynth cards. It can't trigger Welcome, can't trigger. I guess it can trigger the field spell. I forgot to read what this field spell does for those of you who are new to Labrynth. So let's read what it says. If you activate a set Welcome Labrynth normal trap, so this also applies to Big Welcome Labrynth, you can add this additional effect to that card's effect at resolution. After that, destroy 1 card on the field. If you activate, so this basically adds a pop to your Welcome Labrynth cards. Also, if you activate a non-Labrynth normal trap, except during the damage step, you can special summon 1 Fiend monster from your deck, hand, or graveyard. Sorry, hand or graveyard, not deck. That was a misread. You can only use each effect once per turn. So yeah, Imperm can technically trigger the effect of special from hand or graveyard, which, okay, fine. And technically, Imperm can also you can also chain Lady to Imperm. But other than that, can't trigger Ariana, can't trigger Lovely, can't trigger Welcome with Imperm, and it's just like, really, you're playing Imperm, a card that trades 1 for 0? like what? Like, oh, you Imperm my Ariana, cool. I still have Ariana on the field, and the next turn she's gonna draw me a card. So who cares, right? So yeah, don't play bad Labrynth decks like this guy did. I 2-0'd him. It was not even close. Let's just put it that way. And guess what? I went undefeated, and he did not. So like that also includes other tier matchups. I mean, he did beat a tier. So I beat a tier player in round 1. He beat a tier player in round 1. So we had that Arnold Apollo Creed a handshake, right, meme of beating tier players, right, to get to that point. But yeah, you don't need the Stove, you don't need the Coup Clock. They're just bricks. Like he literally bricked on it. He had those cards against me, and he bricked. They did nothing for him, right? Because again, they don't do anything. Like how are they going to help you clear or set up a board? They're not, right? They just go to the graveyard and then they neg you. So anyway, so yeah, if you're wondering about the Labrynth Mirror matchup, how do you play the Labrynth Mirror matchup? There's 2 important cards you need to go for. One is first player to get this out probably wins. First player to get out the Labrynth Field spell and keep it on and like not get it instantly popped will probably win the mirror matchup because again, like we're adding pops to like our welcome cards, and then which will trigger our Ari and Lovely effects and while they don't, right? So if you get this field spell out before your opponent in the mirror matchup, you're probably gonna win. So Turbo this is the name of the game. Another card that's great in the mirror matchup is Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Whoever resolves Eradicator Epidemic Virus first probably wins. So yeah, so for those of you wondering, how do you play the Labrynth mirror matchup? That's how. turbo this card, turbo the virus, and then whoever resolves it first probably wins. All right. So that is our Labrynth core. What did I say? This is a 10 cards at the moment. Yeah. 6 monsters. All right. Let's get into cards that I believe to be core to control trap decks that I think every control trap deck should be running. So for those of you who see my Master Duelist videos know what I'm talking about. We have 3 copies of Lord of the Heavenly Prison. So we are playing the Prismatic Secrets from the Megatins. So by the way, the other Labrynth player I played did not have Lord, and I did. And because of that, I got to search a trap card, Virus, and he did not, right? So, and by the way, this card can also search like Metaverse, which can put the field spell on the field immediately. So, needless to say, and it's a 3K body, which can literally crash into Lady, right? Like, oh, how do you out Lady? Like, because Lady can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects. Lord of the Heavenly Prison, summon and attack. Like, that's for the mirror matchup, right? It's a 3K beater, right? So just crash into Lady. Or if their Lady's in defense, you just swing over, right? So yeah, Lord of the Heavenly Prison not only protect, like, it's a great. I don't. I literally I can't compute in my mind how you can play a back row deck and not play this card, at least in the side deck, right? Maybe you don't want to play it in the main deck because you think, oh, going first, they're not going to have any back row clear, they're not going to have any card popping effects, although every modern deck, like now, like has a way to pop cards, right? Like Tearlaments field spell, for example, right? Or even Nightmare Phoenix, right? Whatever. I like to main deck this, but very least it should be in your side deck. I think it should be a 3 of in the main deck because it's so freaking good. So let's read what this card says. So 3,000 attack, 3,000 defense. During your main phase, you can activate this effect. This card in your hand becomes revealed until the end of your opponent's turn. Okay? While this card is revealed by this effect, set cards on the field cannot be destroyed by card effects. So that means, and that's for either player. So your opponent's set back row, your set back row cannot be destroyed. As soon as the card flips and it's face up, it can be destroyed. So keep that in mind. And it also protects set monsters. So face down monsters will not be destroyed, but cannot be destroyed by card effects. So, and then the second effect says, if a set spell trap card is activated, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you activate this effect while this card was revealed from the other effect, you can reveal and set 1 spell trap directly from your deck, but banish it during the end phase of your next turn. So each of these effects, like the first and second effect, are mutually exclusive. So you can only use 1 effect per turn and only once that turn, right? So typically, turn 1, you reveal Lord, reveal it in your hand. So set your back row, and then on your opponent's turn, at some point during their turn, you'll flip a card, and then on a new chain. So this triggers on a new chain. It's a trigger effect. You special Lord from your hand. You activate Lord. Special from hand, and then set a back row, right? So, by the way, Lord can search Welcome Labrynth. So let's say you don't have any of your Labrynth engine pieces out yet. You don't have Ari, you don't have Lady, you don't have. Like, let's say you haven't seen your Labrynth cards. Lord can literally search Welcome Labrynth, and then you have your engine, right? So, yeah. But he can search any spell trap, including your pot cards, draw you more cards. So, yeah, don't search Floodgates or like Continuous or the field spell because, again, you have to banish it on your end phase, right? Most of the time, you want to summon Lord on your opponent's end phase so that you can set a card, because you have to reveal that card, that your opponent will not be able to respond to because they can't do anything on their end phase unless it's a quick effect, right? But they can't set or like summon or whatever, usually. Sometimes you want to summon him in battle phase to block damage because he's a 3K defense. But a lot of times, I'll take the damage and summon him on end phase, right? Because I'd rather take the damage, summon him on end phase, and then give my opponent no time to respond. But also, if your opponent has like a Harpy's Feather Duster or a Lightning Storm, they can't play it on their end phase, but they can play it in main phase too. So try to delay summoning him as much as possible. End phase is the preference. Sometimes you need to summon him in the battle phase. And in fact, because he's a 3,000 attack Dark Monster, you can tribute him for Eradicator Epidemic Virus, which we're going to talk about later. So, yeah, sometimes you want to put him on the field sooner so that you can immediately Virus, tribute him for Virus. So, yeah, he's really good. So most of the time, if you don't have your Welcome, your Labrynth engine pieces, he's going to search Welcome Labrynth. Other times, he's probably going to search your pot card. Speaking of pot cards, we have 2 copies of Pot of Extravagance, 2 copies of Pot of Duality. So you'll never need the 3rd copy of this card. You'll never need the 3rd copy of this card. Actually, that's not true. The 3rd copy of this card could be played, but you don't want to see more than 2 of these in your opening hand. And if you have 2 of, you're probably never going to. So, however, because of these ratios, unlikely you see both of the same in your hand, but decent chance you see 1 of each, which is what we want, right? We want 1 of each. We want Extrav, draw 2, and then we want Duality to excavate for 3, and these can be played on the same turn, right? Lord of the Heavenly Prison can search these. And these cards can also grab your lords, right? Like if you didn't open with Lord in your opening hand, but you open one of these, maybe one of these cards will get your lord, right? So in our main deck, we have 3 back row protection cards, but we also have 4 pots, that can possibly get us these cards. So most of the time, if I'm using Duality, right, I'm either gonna take Lord if I see it, or if I see a Labrynth engine piece that I don't have any in my hand, I'll probably take a Labrynth engine piece. So, yeah, so that's your priority list. So, Pod Duality, what should Excavate 3? What should I grab? If I see Lord, I like to have it. I like to have Lord in hand, assuming I didn't open one. If I don't have any Labrynth cards in my opening hand, by the way, Trap Trick I consider to be a Labrynth card because it can get you Welcome, right? So if I don't have Trap Trick or any of the Labrynth cards in my opening hand, I want Duality to grab me one of my Labrynth cards if I can. Obviously, don't grab Lovely or the Field Spell, right? Otherwise, maybe grab a Floodgate if you don't have that Floodgate already. So if you didn't open one of your Floodgates, then grab a Floodgate. Otherwise, grab like whatever trap card will do the most damage. Torrential Tribute, like Punishment, and again, that you don't already have. So that's what I like to do for Duality. So Lord of the Heavenly Prison can, most of the time, if you're not setting Welcome Labrynth, you'll be setting Pot of Extravagance. So yeah, most games, the ideal scenario is you open one of these, and then Lord will search you the second one, and then both of them will be activated, and then your extra deck will be depleted, and you'll have like 2 or 3 left, depending on whether you use Punishment or not. But yeah, so 2 is all you need. Do not run 3. If you're running 3, you're kind of breaking yourself because the 3rd copy will never be played, and you don't never want to see more than 1 of these in your opening hand. So yeah, and then finally the last. Speaking of Trap Trick, we are playing 2 copies of Trap Trick in this deck. I think that's, if you're playing a control back row deck like Trap deck, and you're not playing Trap Trick, what is wrong with you? This is 2 more copies of all your normal traps, right? Remember how we said we have 3 Welcome Labrynth? We actually have 5 Welcome Labrynths, right? And when we get big Welcome Labrynth in the deck, we'll have 2 more copies of that as well, right? So I don't know, like, you should just play 2 Trap Trick. It's great. This card is amazing. Let's read what it says. Banish 1 normal trap from your deck except Trap Trick, and if you do, set 1 card with a different name directly from your deck. It can be activated this turn. You can only activate 1 trap card for the rest of this turn after this card resolves. You can only activate Trap Trick once per turn. So because it's a hard once per turn, we're only running 2, right? It's a 2 of. We don't want to see 2 of these in our opening hands. So that's why it's a 2 of. And why, yes, that is a collector's rare Trap Trick. So yeah, very pretty. So again, this is essentially part of your Labrynth engine, because if you don't see Welcome in your opening hand, or Ariana or Lady, you can literally like Trap Trick into Welcome. Remember, so you can only activate 1 trap card after this card resolves, which means if you want to activate more than 1, well, first of all, try to make this the last trap card you activate. Like, activate your other trap cards first. But you can also activate your other trap cards in the same chain, right? But also, after you play Trap Trick and you place a trap, if you activate a trap and that trap's activation gets negated by, let's say, Barone, then technically you did not activate that trap, so you can activate another one. So just keep that in mind. If after you use Trap Trick, you activate a trap and the activation gets negated, you can activate an extra one. So yeah, and if Trap Trick gets like negated by Barone, you can technically flip the second one. So yeah, Trap Trick very good. And then finally, 3 copies of Solemn Strike. I pretty much always resolve this card. This card is never a brick. This card, unless it's like 20 turns in, you're at like 500 life points, then maybe it's a brick. But you see this card, it can resolve. It's not once per turn. This card reads, it's counter trap. When a monster's would be special summon or a monster effect is activated, pay 1,500 life points, negate activate the summon or activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And well, yes, this is also the collector's rare Solemn Strike. But yeah, if you see all three of these in your opening hand, you can play all three of them on your opponent's turn. It's not once per turn. Um, your opponent summons a 4-material Zeus, Solemn Strike, say no. Your opponent summons Access Code, Solemn Strike, say no. Your opponent summons anything that can be problematic, you Solemn Strike, say no. Now, this only negates inherent summons, does not negate summons that start a chain. So you can't Solemn Strike Branded Fusion, for example, but you can Solemn Strike a link, like a regular link summon, or like a you can special summon you can negate a special summon like Sprite Red or Sprite Carrot, right? Yeah, this card is just great. I'm always gonna have 3 of these in my main deck because again, it's always useful. I can't tell you the number of times I resolve this card. It's never a brick. Like I'm telling you. So yeah, so this is my back row control trap deck core, right? So we have 10 cards from our Labrynth package, and we have 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 3 is 10. 12 cards from our back row trap deck, so we're at 22 cards, right? So all of the remaining 18 cards are what I would say optional slash format dependent. By the way, for those of you wondering, interested in ratio, so this is a 40 card deck. So if it's a 40 card deck and we have 10 Labrynth cards in our deck, that means 1/4, aka 25%, aka 1 in 4 cards in our deck is a Labrynth card. So people saying, oh, I never see my Labrynth cards, like, then I don't know what to tell you. You're getting unlucky, especially considering that Trap Trick can get you to them, and so can your pot cards. So really you have 10 plus 2 plus 4, 16 ways to get to your Labrynth engine. So if you're never seeing your Labrynth engine, you're just getting extremely unlucky. And actually, 19 ways, because Lord can search you, welcome. So you must be getting really unlucky if you're never seeing your Labrynth cards or like your monsters. So you should be seeing them, right? Because this is like you have 10 cards, 25% of your opening hand. So like 5-card hand, at least one of your cards will probably be Labrynth related. And if not, you have these cards to search those cards. So yeah, I don't want to hear comments saying, oh, you have too few Labrynth cards, I never see them. That is bullshit because I always see them. Every duel I see my Labrynth cards. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you if you're not seeing that. I guess you're just like the unluckiest person in the universe or something. Anyway, so that's my core back row trap control cards, right? Now let's get into the optional cards that are format dependent. So I'm running 1 copy of Necro Valley, 2 copies of Metaverse. So unfortunately, we're still in Tier 0 Tearlaments format. So yeah, this is the I Hate Tier package. So Necro Valley, you play this against Tier, they probably scoop. Unless, I don't know, they somehow mill like Shadal Dragon, or like they play hard play Poly from their hand, make Guardian Chimera. I don't know, like there's not that many outs, or it's, if they side decked in like maybe like back row removal, right? Yeah, so this is the I Hate Tier cards. This is also good against Dark World. I mean, not great against Dark World. It's okay against Dark World because I mean they can't summon. Actually, no, this is great against Dark World because they can't even fuse unless they fuse from their hand, right? But they can't recycle their fusion spell. They can't banish Genta. Actually, yeah, Necro Valley, they can't even use Gates of the Dark World. So yeah, this is great against Dark World as well. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Metaverse is a normal trap. It's at 3 now, but we're only running 2 because again, our deck. I mean, it's not once per turn, so. But then again, if we only have the only field spell is in our deck is like Necro Valley, and this guy, like, do you really want to resolve Metaverse more than once? Not really, especially since in tier matchups we're taking out the Labrynth field spell. Then this is our only field spell, so we essentially have 5 ways to getting to Necro Valley. We have hard drawing it. We have 2 cards, and then guess what? Trap Trick can also search Metaverse. You know what else can search Metaverse? Lord of the Heavenly Prison, right? You can set it on your end phase. Lady can search Metaverse off of in response to any of the other trap cards. Your pot cards can draw you Metaverse. You have 4 of those, right? Or it can draw you Necro. So you're very likely going to see this, right? Assuming, of course, the tier player, when they did Calbec or Agito, they didn't force you to mill this. If they milled your one of Necro Valley, I guess you just cry. I don't know, like it happens. I mean, you can still win without Necro Valley, but like this card was MVP. Every time I put on the field against Tearlaments, I won. Literally, I would just win. So I remember in the finals. So it was me. The finals was me versus a Tearlaments player because of course it was right. Uh, I remember he did. I think I had like a set metaverse, right? And then they milled a bunch of cards, and then they did Chainlink 1 Sharon, their attempt to fuse, and I did Chainlink 2 Metaverse, and then Metaverse puts Necro Valley in the field, and then this negates the Sharon that just activated. So a lot of times you don't necessarily want to shotgun this. I think it's better, in my opinion, to chain this to a graveyard effect. Why? Good question. The reason is because let's say they have a quick play spell card like Cosmic Cyclone, right? Um, then if they activate, let's say they Kelbeck or they whatever, and they mill like 5 cards and mill 8 cards, whatever, and then allow Chainlink 1. Let's say they mill all 3 of their Tearlaments names, right? Chainlink 1 Sharon, Chainlink 2 Havness, Chainlink 3 Merly, right? If you do Chainlink 4 Metaverse and they have a Cosmic Cyclone in hand, they can't stop it, right? Because Necro Valley hasn't hit the field yet. So Chainlink 3 Cosmic Cyclone would not make sense, or even Chainlink 3 Twin Twisters, right? Which means Necro Valley hits the field in Chainlink 4 or whatever Chainlink, and then all the graveyard effects that were activated in the lower Chainlinks gets negated. However, let's say you shotgun Metaverse, right? And you put Necro Valley on the field. Then they can just Cosmic Cyclone and take that out so that their graveyard effects can resolve, right? Or let's say let's say they just play Twin Twisters to try to target your back row, and they target Metaverse, chain Metaverse, and put Necro Valley on the field. Bam! They already use their quick play back row, and then they can't target this anymore unless they have a second one, right? So yeah, most of the time you want to chain Metaverse to your opponent's activating graveyard effects. So because that way it negates. Yeah, so I did that against a tier player in the finals for game 3. Dude, I can't tell you the level of butthurt he was. He was like, oh, but I activated Sharon in Chainlink 1, so Sharon should still resolve. He literally called the judge for this. I'm like, no. Necro Valley hits the field in Chainlink 2, right? Which happens before Chainlink 1, right? In terms of because you resolve backwards, right? And this is a continuous effect that says neither player can move cards out of the graveyard and negate any card that attempts to, right? He called a judge for this. I'm like, dude, you're a tier player. You should know how Necro Valley works at this point. But yeah, this guy was so butthurt. He was calling judge. He was bitching and moaning. He was like, oh, I already, dude, like 3 other players sitting next, like who were watching our game, like told us, no, like he was telling this guy that I was right. He still called the judge, and then the judge told him that I was right, and then he just like, oh, it was, man, I love, I love that the deck is called Tears, because the amount of tears that these Tearlaments players usually have, like Tearlaments players are hilarious because like they're playing the most busted deck in probably in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh. And they still complain about other cards. Oh, they complain about Barrier Statue. They complain about Flu. They complain about Necroval. They complain about Floodgates. I'm like, bro, you're playing Tearlaments. Shut the fuck up. Like, nobody wants to hear it. Yeah, you're literally like the scum of the earth or something. You literally are not allowed to complain about anything if you're playing Tearlaments. So, except your own deck, like in the mirror matchup or like whatever. So yeah, it was hilarious to see that. Very satisfying to activate this card against tier players because a lot of them might just insta scoop. It's like, what are you gonna do? Nothing. Their best play is like try to make Zeus, but like, bruh, if you put 2 level 4s on the field, I know there's a Zeus play coming. Like, I'm not an idiot. I'll have something to deal with that, right? So yeah, the only out they have for this is like a Zeus play, I guess, unless they have like back row removal. So yeah, so this is the I Hate tier package. Obviously, side this out against Flu because it does nothing, right? But like against Flu, this suddenly turns into Zombie World from the side deck, right? So same deal, right? All right. So anyway, I think I gone on enough about this. And also, Metaverse can not just activates to the field; it can also search to your hand, which means If you're getting like Lightning Storm, you can just Metaverse and search Necro Valley to your hand, like Chained, right? Uh, but yeah, anyway. So that's the I Hate Tier package, right? Next, 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. In my last video, I had 2 of them, but I really missed the 3rd copy, so 3rd copy came back in. This card is not once returned. It reads, when a monster is summoned, destroy all monsters on the field. Very simple. Flip summon, special summon, normal summon, doesn't matter. Link summon, right? Yeah, that is collector's rare, because I love this card. You essentially have 5 copies of this because you have Trap Trick. But wait, won't this kill your lab monsters? Yes, it will. So typically what you do is, if you let's say you open this and welcome Labrynth in like opening hand and you set, right? Just resolve Torrential before you resolve your Labrynth card. Very simple, right? Like Torrential is like your first line of defense against most, like when they try to build their board. And then if they can still try to build a board, then like, you know, you can go ahead and try to use your other plays. But typically, yeah, I never had to have issues with Torrential killing my own monsters. It doesn't really come up. It's not really a thing. I don't really like say, oh no, I have to kill my monster. Whatever. Like, it doesn't really happen. So, yeah, if you see all 3 copies in your opening hand, all 3 copies can be played. This card is great, except against Tearlaments because all their monsters have floating effects. And actually, that's not entirely the case. Because, so, in one of my in my 3rd match, was it my 3rd match? Maybe it was my first, my final in the finals. I don't remember. I had 2 Torrential Tributes, right? So they had like, they had, what was it? Rukalos, and they had the other one, Kaleido Heart, right? Both of them have effects that say if this card is sent to the graveyard, it revives, right? But they're once per turn effects. So I remember they summoned a tier, or I forget what it is. Like they summoned something. I Torrential, I killed all their monsters, right? They used Rukalos. They used the tier Rukalos effect, Kaleido Heart effect, and then the other tier monster that I blew up effect to fuse and make I think they're gonna make Drago's Speller or whatever. So then they brought out like 3 more fusion monsters, right? They brought out Rukalos, they brought out Kaleido Heart, and then they brought out I think it was like Drago's Speller or something. And then Kaleido Heart Summon tries to bounce this card to my deck, and then I just chain a second Torrential Tribute, blow up their field again. This time they cannot come back. So actually, even though Torrential Tribute is good against tier if you see 2 of them. If you see only 1, it feels bad. But I will say that if I'm game 2 and 3, I usually side out Torrential Tribute against tier because I know they all have floating graveyard effects. But against every other deck, this almost always stays in, and it's like, yeah, against Sprite, this does work. This does so much work against so many decks that it's hard. Yeah, I did 2. I made it a 2 of last time. In my last deck, and I decided, no, I want the 3rd copy. Like, this card is just way too good. So, yeah, so Torrential Tribute. 2 copies of Dogmatic Punishment. We're at 2 because this is a hard once per turn. Actually, it's not a hard once per turn. It's a once per turn, because if it gets negated, you can activate the second. Typically don't want to see 2 in your opening hand, unless you know it's going to get negated by, like, Barone or something. This card reads, target face a monster your opponent controls, send a monster equal or higher attack from your extra deck, and if you do, destroy that monster. Then you're locked out of your extra deck. So this card's great. We run Elder Entity and Tis in our extra deck, which means we can send that, pop a monster, and then Entis will pop a card, usually a back row. Against Tearlaments, you want to pop the field spell, because screw that field spell. I hate the Tearlaments field spell. All my homies hate Tearlaments field spell. So, speaking of Tearlaments field spell, whenever they inevitably hit Tearlaments, like in the ban list, here's how I think they should hit it. Field spell to 1, ban Havness, ban Kitkalos, Kelbeck to 1. I think that should be enough to get the deck under control. I don't care. You can leave everything else as a 3 of. I don't care. But yeah, I think field spell to 1, Kelbeck to 1, Kitkalos to 0, Havness to 0, and I think it's mostly solved. Putting Havness to 0 means they can't do a turn 0 combo, and also it means that they have 1 fewer name to fuse. So they have 2 fusions. So if you hit one of them with a hand trap, then they have 1 fusion, and then like what the hell are they gonna do with just 1 fusion? So I think that'll fix the tier problem. Ban Kitkalos, ban Havness, and then you have Kelbeck and field spell to 1, and I think the deck will be balanced. Yeah, the reason the deck is still going to OCG is because Havness is not banned. So, and I think Kelbeck is at 2. I don't know. I don't know what the ratios are in the OCG, but Havness is not banned. Is all I have to say. Okay, So 2 copies punishment. You really have 4 copies because of trap trick. I almost never side out punishment. 2 copies of compulsory evacuation device. This card is not once per turn, so technically we could run a 3rd copy, but I don't have the room for it. So anyway, this card says target monster on the field, return it to targets in the hand. This is great against Tearlaments. You can bounce Kaleidoheart, you can bounce through Kalos, bounce kick Kalos. Yeah, this can absolutely like screw Tearlaments over. Which makes me think maybe I should try to force a 3rd copy in here, but again, deck doesn't have that much room. But really, we have 4 copies because of Trap Trick. This card normally is not a good card because most of the time it trades 1 for 1, but because Lady can chain and set another card from deck, then this card nets, right? Lovely can recycle, after on this card's resolution, pop a card. Around it can draw you a card. So because this card is good in this deck, but I would not play this in Eldritch because like you're just trading 1 for 1, and that's stupid. All right, those are all the trap cards, and now we're going to get into Floodgates, right? So, Floodgate package. We have 3 copies of Goes and Match. We have 2 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. So let's put that here. So, and then we have 3 copies of Skill Drain. So this is a total of 8 Floodgates. Like, oh, why are you running Floodgates in a Labrynth deck that wants normal traps? Because they're good cards. It's like, why would you run non-worm monsters like Bestials in your Sword Soul deck? Because they're good cards. Like, why would you run Imperm in a Sword Soul deck when they want worm monsters? Because they're good cards. Like, anyone who tells you not to run Floodgates in Labrynth has literally no idea what they're talking about. Because this is 8 cards, let's do some math. 8 cards and 40 cards means 20% of your deck is Floodgates. That is 1 in 5. So that means if you have a 5-card hand, on average, 1 of these cards is in your hand. On average. You have 1 of those 5 cards is a Floodgate, 1 of those 5 cards is a Labrynth card, and then the other 3 cards are the other cards, are one of the other cards that I showed you, right? So, yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't run this card. Like, Skill Drain, these cards help you win going second against Tearlaments, right? Game 1 you lose a coin toss, right? You don't have Sphere Mode or Lava Golem yet. These cards will help you win. So at this locals, I've won a lot of games with these cards, going like losing the coin toss or whatever, going second against Tearlaments. Yeah, these cards going first against Tearlaments. This card will just shut them down, right? Imagine Kalos not able to use her effect. Like, how are they going to get her into the graveyard, right? Like, they can't even use Suliek under Skill Drain. Did you know that? If Skill Drain is active, Suliek is a dead card. Does nothing, right? Gozen is the best. So last video I had 3 Rivalry, 2 Gozen. I swapped the ratios because Gozen it really is the better card because it's better against Flu, it's better against Sprite than Rivalry. Although Rivalry also hits Sprite. And it's better against like Kashtira, right? So I'm contemplating. So again, this is all speculation. Once Photon Hypernova comes out, other than Big Welcome Labyrinth, we have a new card called Waybridge. Waybridge is a card that forces your opponent to like basically clear their field down to 1 monster, right? I'm thinking about taking out 2 rivalries for that card, right? The point of Rivalry and Gozen is you want to clear the Tearlaments board, or you want to clear your opponent's board. And the beautiful thing about these cards is they don't trigger any of the Tearlaments graveyard effects. That's right. So these cards force your opponent to send monsters to the graveyard. So they're being sent by your opponent. They're not being sent by card effects. So technically, if you go in a Rivalry and they send a bunch of tier monsters to the graveyard, none of those tier monsters can activate their effects. Period. So yeah, so they're better in torrential in that way in the Tearlament matchup. But in general, like your opponent builds a board, these cards will just clear the board, right? Assuming they don't get negated. But oh, what about Tearlament's Crime? Well, if you open 2 of these, let's say you open 2 of these, or you open like something else, like Metaverse, right? I think it was a game. What was it? In the finals, I'm trying to remember. Game 1, I lost the Dyro. I went second. So what I did was, trying to remember. I think I did. Okay, I set Rivalry of Warlords and I set Metaverse, right? My opponent had Baron de Fleur, Rukalos, and a couple other cards. They did not have Crime. They went Baron de Fleur instead of Crime. And basically, what I did was I flipped Metaverse to threaten Necro Valley, force Bro Negate, and after Bro Negates, I Rivalry. And I was like, all right, so what card are you going to keep? So they have this field full of monsters. They have like a Kaleido Heart, which is a Fiend. They have Rukalos, which is an Aqua. They had another tier monster, which is an Aqua. They had Barone, which is a Warrior. They had Sprite Elf, which is a Thunder, right? And now I flip Rivalry. Now you got to pick one of those types to keep. So they sent Barone to, they sent everything to graveyard except Rukalos. They kept Aqua. So they could have kept Fiend for Kaleido Heart, but then Kaleido Heart's kind of a dead card because if you can't summon any of Aqua's, then Kaleido Heart's effect doesn't go off. So yeah, so this literally just cleared the board. So bait their negate with like their crime or whatever with another card. In that case, I try to bait with Metaverse, and then I hit them with Rivalry, right? So yeah, like, and the reason I did that is because they already had their fully constructed board, right? So Metaverse, so like I could have baited Rivalry to use Rivalry bait to negate, and then Metaverse in the Necro Valley, but then they still have a board full of monsters, and then Burrow can just pop Necro Valley. So instead, I decided I need to clear monsters, so bait the negate with Metaverse, and then hit them with Rivalry, right? Or let's say bait their negate with Goes and then hit them with Rivalry, right? Or bait their negate with Skilder and then hit them, right? There's a lot of ways to bait their negate. If they have Crime or they have Barone de Fleur, just bait their negate. It's that simple. And then hit them with the card that'll actually clear their board. So, yeah. So these cards are great. The new card, Waybridge, which comes out Photon Hypernova, has an effect that's like, if your opponent controls 2 more monsters than you, which they almost always will, you force them to send all the monsters to the graveyard except one. So that card is, which is not once per turn, by the way, and neither of these cards. None of these cards are once per turn. If you draw double Gozen or double Rivalry, you flip one, they negate with Crime or Barone. You flip the other one, bam, their board is cleared, right? But the point is, that Waybridge card will also force your opponent to send monsters to the graveyard, which will not trigger the graveyard effects because the player is doing it, not the card effects. So yeah. So my contemplation is when Waybridge comes out, these cards are going to be cut to make room for Waybridge. Probably, right? I'm still theory crafting, but that's what I'm thinking. So yeah. So trust me, you play these Floodgates, you will win. You will win. I literally went undefeated, and I would not have done so if I did not have these cards. These cards were MVPs. They helped me win games. Please do not cut them. They're great cards. And for those of you wondering, so we have ultra rare Gozens from Magnificent Mavens. We have collector's rares from Grand Creators or King's Court, whatever. And then these are the ultimate rare skill drains from the OTS pack. So yeah. Anyway, so that's the main deck. 40 cards. I did not have any troubles with bricking. Like you can shuffle this deck, draw a 5-card hand. You will not have very many. You'll have no more than 1 brick in your opening hand, and by 1 brick, it's probably lovely. Let's be real. So that's the main deck. Now let's get into the extra deck. Okay, so for the extra deck, it's not that interesting because you almost never go into this extra deck, especially when you have Pot of Extravagance. Like you're just going to be banishing your extra deck most of the time anyway. But let's get into it. 3 copies of Elder Entis, 1 copy of Cyframe Lord Omega. So yeah, I guess like Entis is just like this is your dogmatic punishment target. Most of the time you'll be sending Entis. You get that second pop. A couple times I actually sent Omega when I did not have a second card to pop, or when their monster was like above 2,500. I'm not playing Wind Pegasus Agnister because like it's 2,300 attack. There's not that many monsters nowadays that you want to use against unless it's like a sprite matchup. But I saw 0 sprites at this locals. I did see Kashtira Fenrir a lot. And Fenrir is 2,500, so like, what the hell is Wind Pegasus going to do for you? Like, I think Kashtira Unicorn, or maybe Fenrir is 2,400, Kashtira Unicorn is 25, whatever. Either way, Wind Pegasus is never really going to be used, I don't think. But yeah, Omega was quite nice because this card can recycle cards from the graveyard, or like bounce cards in the graveyard, right? So like, for example, one time I did Omega, I sent it against what was it? I forget. Off punishment. And then on my main phase, I used Omega to target. I had an Ariana. I forget. I had one of my welcome cards, my Labrynth cards. I forget what. I think it was. I had Lovely in the graveyard, and then I shuffled Omega back, or I shuffled Lovely back into the deck, and then shuffled it back. And another time I used them, I had a Pot of Duality in my graveyard. I'm like, well, Pot of Duality is literally standing for any like one of three cards. So like I shuffle back Omega and Pot of Duality. Another thing you can use Omega for is like which I've done a lot when playtesting online. Let's say you previously used Entis and you have an Entis in your graveyard, and then you send Omega on a future punishment, and then what you can do is like you literally use Omega and put Omega and Entis back in your extra deck, and now you can use punishment with Entis even more. Like, yeah, because punishment has a lot of recyclability in Labrynth thanks to Lovely, right? So yeah, sometimes you just want to do that. So Omega very very useful. This did come up a couple times. Entis came up almost every game, like to no one's surprise. So yeah, so that's your Dogmatic punishment targets. I never use extra. I haven't banished all of them, so yeah, you should be fine with that. And then for the rest of my deck is mostly XCs with a couple links. Let's do XCs. So I'm running the DDD package. So one copy of DDD Wave King Kaiser, one copy of DDD Marksman King's Tell, one copy of DDD Divisor King Deus Machinex. So these are all fiends, and Welcome Labyrinth locks you into fiends, so that's why I'm running this package. Rank 4. This never came up, but there was one game in match, I want to say, I don't know if it was the finals or my third match against the Tearlaments player. I had two Arianas on the field, and I could have gone Wave King Kaiser with the two Arianas, rank up in the Marksman Tail, rank up in the Deus Machinex. But instead, I just swung for game. I had enough monsters on the field to just swing for game, so I didn't bother. But I could have done that. If I didn't have lethal, I did have, and my extra deck was still intact, I could have gone into Deus Ex Machinex. So let's read what this guy says. So you can also XC summon using DDD. So yeah, so two Arianas ranking the XCs into this, then rank up, then rank up. And then you have a total of 4 materials because you have two Arianas here. Let's read what this guy says. So once per chain, when a monster card your opponent controls activates this effect, you can either detach 2 materials from this card or destroy one Dark Contract card you control. And if you do, attach that opponent's card to this card as material. So basically, you'll have 4 materials. You detach 2, and their monster will attach here. Then you'll have 3. Detach 2 again, and it detaches for cost. No, it does not detach for cost. It detaches for effect. So, yeah, in the Tearlaments matchup, you want to attach Kikalos to this so that it will not go to the graveyard and it'll stay attached, right? And then you can detach 2 more, attach another monster, and you'll have 2 more. Still have 2 materials from the monsters you attached, and then you can do it a third time. So, is this once per turn? Once per chain. It's not once per turn. It is once per chain. So. This never came up, but theoretically it could, and in this locals that I attended, it almost did, if it wasn't for the fact that I just had lethal, right? So yeah, good package. If you want, like, run 3 of these, right, just so that, if you banish off Extrav, you'll still have access. It's up to you. Again, most of the XC's monsters are just monsters that I just have that are just generally good. 1 copy of number 60 Dugaris Timeless, 1 copy of Evil Swarm Exodus Knight. Again, these never came up, but these are both fiends, so technically you can make them under Welcome Labrynth. Then I have obviously the 2 broken XC's monsters. 1 copy of Baguska, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller. Baguska's a fiend, so Abyss Dweller is not, unfortunately, but never came up. 1 copy of Tornado Dragon, just I don't know, I guess for some back row matchups, I suppose. Never came up. And then 1 copy of Dingirsu. This is the only rank 8 I'm running because all your 3 ladies and then your lovely are all level 8s. So this card is really good. It's not a fiend, unfortunately, but let's read what it says. If this card is special, I mean, activate one of these effects. Send a card to your opponent controls a graveyard or attach one of your banished machine monsters to this card's material. So this can be a non-targeting sent to the graveyard. And also, this says, if a card you control would be destroyed by battle card, you can detach a material from this card instead. So this card can technically protect against back row clear. So if they play Harpy's Feather Duster, you can detach a material and your back row will not be destroyed. So this never came up, but there were plenty of games where I had Lovely and Lady on the field. And most of the time, I just want to keep them on the field. Like, I don't want them to go into Dingirsu. Like, I didn't really need to, right? But But you know, we're running 3 ladies, so if you ever have like an extra lady, you know, I guess you can go ahead and make this, I suppose. But yeah, it never came up. So yeah, so those are all my XCs. Feel free to swap some of these out for whatever you feel like might come in handy. Maybe you want to do the Radiant's Night package. Maybe you want, I don't know, maybe you want to do something else. But yeah, feel free to do that. And the last 2 cards I have is Muckraker of the Underworld, never came up, and then Dark the Dark Charmer, never came up. Dark Charmer, just, you know, maybe revive a broken dark monster from their graveyard, especially if you have like 2 Arianas, right? And why, yes, this is a Starlight Dark, because I've had this since my Dark Magician deck, and I like me a Starlight. So, and Muckraker is a fiend. It's going to essentially give you an extra 1,000 attack, because you can link away, and then use their effect to revive the lady that you just linked, and then you have like 3k plus. So it's fine. I mean, never came up, but I don't know. Not a. I mean, you can cut this if you want. Yeah, notice I'm not running Zeus or Access Code. I mean, I don't really have a way to link climb in this deck, so what's the point of Access Code? And then for the XCs, it's like, well, if Zeus sends all other cards on the field to the graveyard, including my own, and to get 2 Arianas on the field, I would have needed multiple turns, so I probably have back row. So I just decided, I don't need Zeus. That's fine. Probably not going to come up anyway, and there was never a situation where it would have. Well, I guess I had 2 Arianas at one time, but I had lethal, so whatever. So that's the extra deck. I would just say keep the punishment packages. In fact, if you want to just transform this deck into all punishment cards, maybe swap this out with like put 2 more Omegas at 1. Put Wind Pegasus. Put 5-headed dragon. Put whatever you want. Whatever high attack value punishment target you have. Yeah, feel free to do that. And I'm sure you'll be fine. I'm not going to complain about your extra deck that much. Finally, the side deck. The side deck, probably the most important part. So we have our going second special. 3 copies of Lava Golem, 3 copies of the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. So I'm at 2 Ghost Rares now. I still need to get my 3rd Ghost Rare. And these are the Terminal Ultra Rares from HAC1. I forgot what it's called. Hidden Arsenal, right? Chapter 1. Going second, I always side these in. What do you take out for Lava Golem? You take out, so this is a tier limits matchup, but really most matchups. 2 Poly Duality and 1 Labrynth Field Spell, because, you know, again, it's tier limits. You're going to want to rush Necro Valley anyway, so no point of that. Poly Duality says you cannot special summon, so you cannot Duality and Lava Golem. So you don't want to break yourself by having a Lava Golem and a Duality in your hand, right? So just take out the Dualities and take out the Field Spell. That's 3. And then what about these 3? I take out Torrential Tributes, because against tier limits, Torrential Tributes not much, right? Against other decks, let's say you're against Fluanderies, take out Ravelries, right? Because there's no point in Ravelry, right? You know, figure out what you should take out based on the matchup. But yeah, these should always go in if you're going second. Like against Sprite, this kills their deck. They have Sprite Elf, they have Toad, and they have Sprite Carrot. Bam, gone, field gone. And without Sprite Elf to regenerate, they better have like a starter or like another follow up in hand. But then if you like goes and match, you lock them into Divine Beasts for 1 turn, or Divine Monsters, and then they can't do anything, and then this just goes back to your field, and then you can pop off. So yeah, think about Lava Golem. It's a level 8 Fiend. So last time I made this video talking about Lava Golem, I either misspoke or I didn't make it clear like, how the interaction works. So Lava Golem must first be special summoned to your opponent's field, right? After Lava Golem is outed, and I assume you have a way to out Lava Golem at some point, right? It can then be revived by your Labrynth Field Spell. So this did not come up this time, but the previous locals it did, where you out there Lava Golem, and then I triggered the Labrynth Field Spell, and I just special summoned Lava Golem from my graveyard to the field. Yeah, it's a Fiend, and it's a level 8, so you can technically, you know, on a future turn, revive it with the Field Spell, and then you can also make a rank 8 if you so please, or just beat over them because you have a 3k beater, right? So yeah, Lava Golem's great, Cerebro's great. So here's the thing, against Tearlaments, when you're deciding what to tribute, because a lot of times they have a lot of stuff. They have Elf, they have Cloudheart, they have Rukalos. So if you have Sphere mode, you want to tribute Rukalos, Kaleidoheart, and Elf. And if they don't have Elf, they probably have the Time Thief. So those are 3 you want to tribute because it will not trigger any of their graveyard effects. And obviously Elf. Yeah, right. Obviously they have Barone the Fleur. Take out Barone, right? Barone, Kaleidoheart, uh, Rukalos. Here's the thing, folks. So cards like Suliak and Crime can only be activated if they have a Tear Elements monster on their board. So if you clear tribute their monsters and they no longer have a Tear Elements monster, that means Suliak and Crime are dead. So that means you can like normal. Well, you can't normal Ariana if you use these. So, but that's fine. But you know, if you have like Lady that you can summon or whatever, like don't on their turn or you summon on their turn and they don't have a tier monsters on the field yet, then they can't negate you or like crime you, right? So keep that in mind. That tributing away their tier monsters not only makes it so they can't trigger their graveyard effects, but also and it's their boss monsters obviously, but also it shuts off so they can crime, assuming they don't have any more tier elements on the field. So yeah, these cards are great. Always run 3 of, always side all 6 in when going second. I don't see any reason not to. Next, we have a couple interesting one-ofs. We have 1 copy of Zombie World, 1 copy of Eradicator, and 1 copy of D-Barrier. So Zombie World is literally for flu matchups and flu matchups only. You swap out Necro Valley for this card, and you have, just like in tier matchups, when you go into Necro Valley, they scoop. Flu matchups, you go into Zombie World, they scoop. I saw no flus during that locals. It was all tier, so I never used this card. But in my last video, this card was Different Dimension Ground. I don't know, I felt like Different Dimension Ground was like unnecessary, and I just figured because I saw a lot of flu matchups online, I swapped this in for a Different Dimension Ground. D-Bear is a Lingering Floodgate. So if they try to back row clear, you flip this, call fusions, and then Tearlaments can't do anything, right? Eradicator, it's great in the Labrynth mirror matchup. So whoever sees this card first typically wins. But it's also good as like back row protection. Like if they go into battle phase immediately, you can summon Lord from your hand, and then immediately Eradicator tribute Lord and call traps, and then takes out their evenly matches, right? But this will also be good against. I started signing this in going first against Tearlaments because they have a lot of really good spells, and also most of their good back row clear spells anyway. So, yeah. So if you can use this against Tearlaments, just call spells. Takes out their pesky field spell. Their field spell is the most annoying part to deal with because we're a back row deck, right? They can get pops every turn, right? So get rid of their field spell. Call spells if you can. And then D-Bear is just good. Call Xyz against Kashira, call Fusions against Tearlaments, call Xyz against Sprite. Yeah, this is just a good card, and these cards can be searched off of Lady, right? Because they're normal traps. They can be searched off of Lord because they're just traps, and they can be brought back from the graveyard with Lovely. So you can theoretically D-Barrier every turn with in that way. So, all right, let's get into the last couple cards. So I'll first do Solemn Judgments because we're a back row deck. They're gonna side in back row removal. This card was MVP. I think it was my 3rd match. My tier opponent had evenly matched, but I had Solemn Judgment. There was another. I opened double Solemn Judgment against another tier player, and I was able to. And they put it was just I love this card. You love seeing it. There's a counter trap, so they can't reply to it. I am running the ulti rares on all 3. So basically, in your main deck, you have 3 Lords of Heavenly Prison. When you side, you'll have 3 of these, so that's 6 back row protection. Theoretically, Eradicator can be back row protection, so that's 7. And then you have your Lord of Heavenly Prison can search Eradicator. Your pot cards can draw you into Lord or this card. So, despite my opponents all siding in back row hate, I never got like completely blown out by anything. Like, yeah, maybe they'll play that one Cosmic Cyclone, which will take out 1 card. Do not chain Judgment to Cosmic Cyclone unless they're trying to take out their Necro Valley. But if they're just trying to like take out a random back row with Cosmic Cyclone, let it happen. Do not pay half your life points for 1 weak Cosmic Cyclone. It's not worth it. Just save this for something else. Yeah, so I did get Cosmic Cyclone a lot, but that's okay because again, Cosmic Cyclone is one card. So they take out one of your back row, not a big deal, right? So, and then the final three cards, and these cards I'm going to show you were MVP cards. This card, I swear to God, I won me games straight up. Soul Drain. So let's read what this says. It's like Skill Drain's Continuous Trap. It says, activate by paying 1,000 life points. Monsters that are banished, as well as monsters in the graveyard, cannot activate their effects. They can't even activate them. If you're against Tearlaments and you're going, let's say game 2 or game 3, you're going first, you take out 3 Skill Drains and you put in 3 Soul Drains. Soul Drains will straight up win you the game. It won me at least 3 games so all my tier matchups, I won 2-1. They were not 2-0s. They were all 2-1. First match 2-1. Second match against Labrynth Mirror was 2-0, and then the last 2 tier play was 2-1 and then 2-1. Yeah, this card is cracked. Won me of those 2-1s. This won me 3 of them. 3 of the games where I was going first, and I sided in. So, yeah, this card is great. There was in the finals, I had both Soul Drain and Metaverse. So my tier opponent uses Cosmic Cyclone to take this out, and then they try to do their combos. That's when they send in Sharon, and then they activate Sharon. I chain Metaverse and put Necro Valley, and then game is over at that point. But yeah, typically you want to chain this to a card effect that will send cards to the graveyard. So for example, let's say they activate Sharon in hand, which will special itself, send a card from their hand, and then mill 3 cards. You chain Soul Drain so that the 4 cards that go to the graveyard cannot activate, period. Or, let's say they activate Kikalos targeting herself to send to the graveyard. Let's say the Instant Fusion, right? Kikalos target itself to send to the graveyard. You chain Soul Drain. So then when Kikalos goes to the graveyard, can't activate her effect. Or, you allow Kikalos to go to the graveyard. When she activates her effects, you chain Soul Drain so that the 5 cards that are milled do not activate their effects. Or maybe they send Kelbeck. Activate Kelbeck to mill 5. Activate Soul Drain. The 5 that get milled cannot activate their effects. So this card is cracked. This is low-key, probably one of the best cards in the format right now. Why? This card says monsters in the graveyard and banished monsters cannot activate their effects. Dark World, a lot of graveyard effects. Fluanderies, that means their birds in the banished pile cannot activate their effects. So they open like a map and then Eaglin. They send Robina, right? You chain this. Robina can't even activate to return the hand, so then they're stuck on an Eaglin, and if they don't have another bird, they can't summon, right? Or let's say they get their M-Pen somehow. The monsters that they tributed for M-Pen cannot go back to their hand. So even if they have Dreaming Town, if they don't have any more little birds in their hand, they're done, right? Soul Drain is really good against Flu, really good against Dark World, really good against Tearlaments. Really good against any deck that have graveyard effects. Does Naturia have the graveyard effects? I don't know, but yeah, side this in, going first against Tier, and you will not be disappointed. This card, MVP card. I would never cut this card as long as we're in Tier format. Never, ever, ever. This card won me games straight up. So anyway, that's the deck profile. Let me see. Trying to think of any cool interactions that happened. I think I already talked about the matches I played. Yeah, so I played all tier and then one Labrynth Mirror matchup. Like I said before, the Labrynth player had a strictly worse deck with no Lord of the Heavenly Prison, which is mind-blowing to me. And he had freaking Imperms and Bestials. Like, what are you doing, my guy? So yeah, so I already gave you some suggestions for what to cut for Photon Hypernova. Again, those are suggestions. I haven't actually played with those changes yet, but that's what I've been theory crafting. So eventually, when I play with the Photon Hypernova cards, you know, we do want to put 3 big welcome them, and we want to put between 2 and 3 of the Waybridge into the deck as well. You know, we have to cut some cards, obviously. Once I actually play with those ratios, and actually, you know, win a locals with them, then I'll say, all right, maybe this is probably the right way to go. So those are just suggestions. Don't take it as like 100%. If it ends up not working out, I already said, like, those are just my initial takes. So yeah, basically, this deck is going to be full power once that comes out, because the interactions between Big Welcome and the rest of your deck is so insanely good. Like, just from playtesting online, it's just like, yeah, this card is going to be cracked. And then when Tearlaments and Cashier inevitably get banned in either March or June or July, whenever the TCG decides to catch up with the OCG, I'm going to immediately register for whatever YCS or nationals, because I do have an invite to nationals that I got from a regional last year. So whatever big national tournament happens right after Tearlaments or Cashier get banned, I'm gonna immediately sign up and take my lab deck to that YCS and or nationals, and yeah, hopefully we'll get far, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm not gonna bother because again, I hate Tearlaments format. I'll probably play locals once with a Labrynth like basically whenever my first top happens with my first place happens with Labrynth post Photon Hypernova, I'm just gonna call it a day. Be like, all right, no more locals or Yu-Gi-Oh until Tearlaments and whatever get banned. So yeah, but anyway, inevitably stay tuned for that deck profile because it'll definitely come up. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and yeah. Undefeated. I was actually pleasantly surprised at how many tiers. Usually my locals is a lot more mixed decks. Like last time I got first place with Labrynth in my last video, I played Sprite, I played Umi Control, I played a lot of decks, right, that were not tier. But bro, like the amount of tier I saw was unbelievable. I couldn't like suddenly my locals turned from like a relatively diverse with still tier dominating local. So like everyone is tier except for like 3 people. So that was a little unfortunate. But anyway, yeah. Hope you enjoyed this video and learned something, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.